The Government of National Unity's future is in focus following yet another fallout between two of the biggest members. The Democratic Alliance is up in arms accusing President Cyril Ramaphosa of double standards following the axing of the party's Trade and Industry Deputy Minister Andrew Whitfield. The DA says it will vote against the Higher Education and Human Settlement departmental budgets because they are being hit by corruption-accused ministers. The question, does this threaten the future of the GNU, and how will the ANC respond to this? To answer some of these questions is Professor of Politics and International Relations at the University of Johannesburg's Siphamandla Zondi. Prof, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening. So we saw this afternoon the Democratic Alliance holding that media briefing explaining their position now going forward, saying that they won't be part of that national dialogue. Perhaps let's begin there. What significant impact will that have when the DA does not participate in those discussions?
Oh yeah, good evening, and good evening to your viewers. And of course, the DA had a meeting. The Federal Executive Council had a meeting today just to consider the matter following the removal of Deputy Minister Whitfield. And I think in their calculation, as they looked at the facts of the ground and what are the basis on which they could challenge this and stuff like that, they realized that there are no technical ground to challenge this. Neither can they take this to court because indeed the deputy minister is said to have violated the rules and the procedures and has not followed a procedure. Even if he had not done so, it's still under our constitution, the president has a prerogative to hire or fire. Does not even have to explain it. That's just what you take up when you join a government. You accept the constitutional provision. Anyway, the statement of intent establishing the GNU, the very first principle says the respect of the constitution, the Bill of Rights, and rule of law. And then it talks about following the established procedures of government that are in there. So I think the DA realizes now that having signed up to the GNU, it bound itself to procedures and rules and systems. And if any of them are found at fault of that, they can be acted upon. And what they are asking for is that instead of acting upon those rules, there must be some form of conversation because they are co-governing. And that is based on the premise that they really believe they are co-governing, which means all the decisions must involve them. They must be spoken to as a single party, not as an 11 party. And yet they agreed to the mechanisms that are in place under the GNU, which are led by the deputy president for deadlock breaking mechanism. But they realized that doesn't work as well. It dilutes their power and on. I think they have worked themselves into a corner. They took a risk with this, and there are certain things that they were blindsided to, and this is one of them. They're very, very leaky case for the president to reverse his position on Whitfield. The president can reverse it, of course, if he wishes. It's his prerogative. But it won't be because they have a convincing position against him. Even on this issue about other ANC members of cabinet that have not been fired, again, it's covered under the prerogative of the president. The president can decide.
Of course.
Or not decide.
And I mean, Prof, just touching on that prerogative, because it seems as though the DA, I mean, it's Federal Council Chairperson Helen Ziller, as well as the spokesperson that I just spoke to, Mr. Vili Okamp, was stressing the point of that in terms of what is in the statement of intent, and that's the collective decision that they've agreed to. Where do you draw the line between that constitutional prerogative by the president and that which the statement of intent seeks to do?
Actually, they honored it, categorized the word go, because they persuaded the president about how he would compose his cabinet and left it to the president to decide. So the president may never have decided in the direction they wanted to, or decided in the direction they wanted to. They already say in their statement today that the president appointed a cabinet that was bigger than what they anticipated, because they understood it was not their decision to make, it's only the president's decision to make. Once you have decided this person is the president, you are then also conferring upon the constitutional powers that are in the Constitution, and you then also must then trust that they will act on these powers in the manner that you wish. Failing which, you have to do some persuasion behind the scene but the president must still make the call. So it's nothing new. The president has made all the decisions in the past and made all the decisions they were unhappy. They talk about the acts that the president signed without consulting them, because it's been signaling to them that the president has power that are exclusively of the president, and can willingly share them by consulting with others and letting others participate in his decision making. But ultimately, the decision is his, and there's no obligation for him to follow the line of the coalition partners, however big the coalition partners are. They've agreed to an 11-party coalition, and therefore it assumed that all the parties must agree to anything. So they've worked themselves into a corner, and very difficult to argue for more deference to themselves and more empathy with their position as a single party within this government. It's a difficult one for them. They have to go to the drawing board and re-strategize in terms of the politics of the GNU.
And speaking of those politics, I mean, earlier many had anticipated that there would be some kind of talk with regards to a withdrawal by the DA from the GNU. And its leader has made that very clear that they will not withdraw from that GNU, because then it would be a coalition of chaos, as he refers to it.
Oh yes, of course they're in the GNU because they are trying to prevent a coalition involving the EFF and possibly the MKP. So if for whatever reason they quit the GNU, they know that it means then there would be an alternative. So that's what happens when you are not the only alternative. There's another alternative. You have to weigh your choices and say, I wish you could take this drastic decision. That is if the party, the bigger party, has no other option. But in this case, it has options, and those are the options you are trying to outwit. You're trying to keep them out. So you're gonna have to stay in the coalition under protest with all manner of dissatisfactions that you have about that the choice you have made. The alternative choice is to go into opposition benches and battle it out from that point. And that's what they have done for about 30 years. And I'm sure that's the route they don't want to do again, because it has only produced limited results.
Well, I mean, we're not expecting a bed of roses when it comes to any coalition relationship. And of course, such tensions between these parties is expected. With the DA now coming out and saying that they could possibly put a motion of no confidence against the president, what impact would that have on the GNU?
Yes, and they're making the point that the president is not applying Section 3 of the Statement of Intent, which is about decision-making, and it talks about consensus. There must be consensus. It must be consensus-based action, decision-making. Right now, if they are the only party protesting a decision of the president, then it means the president has consensus, and until we're able to tell that all the other 10 parties also reject it. So if you are a single party in this consensus-based thing, the best thing to do is to build coalitions with other members of the GNU. So that when you take any position, it's a majority position of parties constituting more than 40% that the ANC has, so that you are able to show that it was not a consensus position, then it can be defeated. But under these circumstances, it cannot do that. Now, withdrawing from the national dialogue is a strange thing, because we don't enter it, we don't join the national dialogue. It's an open conversation for all South Africans to do, all parties and all civil society organization and organization. You can't withdraw from what you've not joined. Or they actually simply mean they will not join. They will not be part of the conversation and all of that. And they have calculated what end and achieve what. Or they're trying to give the constituency some signal that they are acting tough, but the range of actions they have are got limited to two. One, about a vote of no confidence in the president, but you need to make sure that you've spoken to the parties that you say you want to keep out of the GNU, the EFF and the MKP and other parties. The second one then was to stay out of the national dialogue, and that too, it's not clear what you achieve, because dialogue can actually proceed without only just one constituency of over 20 constituencies that must participate in the national dialogue.
Lastly, Prof, I mean, the issue of the budgets is also quite an interesting one when the DA says they won't vote within for the portfolio budgets, especially for education as well as human settlements. What messaging do you think this sends out, especially to ordinary South Africans who this then has a direct impact on?
The real leverage the DA had over this government was over holding up the passing of the budget. And they exercised it for a moment. And I don't know what concessions were given to them that they then turned around and voted for it. I'm not quite sure what they won with that blockage of the vote and the stuff, besides the generally agreed idea of withdrawing the VAT thing. But then there was a hiking of other costs for the taxpayer. And then what they're now hoping to do is to try and vote against the budget votes of those ministries that they have a difficulty with. It's possible they will do that, and it will embarrass the GNU because the GNU is supposed to operate in unison. One has to hope that the deadlock-breaking mechanism that is chaired by the deputy president will then kick in to try and convince and persuade them so that they don't do that. Not that if they vote against it, they will actually defeat these budget votes, but they would simply create a sense that this GNU is in tatters. So they have the range of options that they have to really do the stalling, do the brinkmanship, do the changing of decision, influencing of decision is actually narrowed in a very big way. Once they had settled on the number of ministries they would hold, and settled on their role in parliament, that was perhaps the last thing they could negotiate with big outcomes. After that, you have to play along or ship out. If you ship out, you may lose a lot more than you gain.
All right, Prof, thank you so much for your time and for your insights this evening. That was Professor of Politics and International Relations at the University of Johannesburg, Prof. Siphamandla Zondi.